Hello, this is part 55, NSE for Fortinet, preparation for the exam Fortinet 7.2. Policy list, interface pair view by sequence. Firewall policies appear in an organized list. The list is organized either in interface pair view or by sequence. By default, the policy list appears in interface pair view. Each section contains policies in the order that they are evaluated for matching traffic and are arranged by ingress-egress interface pair. Alternatively, we can view our policies as a single comprehensive list by selecting by sequence at the top of the page. In this view, the policies are also listed in the order in which they are evaluated for traffic matching, but they are not grouped. In some cases, we cannot choose the view. For example, if we use multiple source or destination interfaces or the any interface in firewall policy, we cannot separate policies into sections by interface pairs. Some of them would be triplets or more, and in this case, policies are always appearing in a single list by sequence. Next, real-time policy status. When we edit the policy information will be visible. This feature is very useful if an administrator wants to check the policy usage, such as last used, ID, first used, active sessions, hit count, total bytes, current bandwidth, usage graph. Next, policy ID. Policy ID, it's an important concept to understand about how firewall policies work is the precedence of order, or if we prefer, we can also name it like first come, first served. It's a more recognizable term. Policy IDs are identifiers. By default, policy IDs are not displayed on the policy list graphical user interface. We can add policy ID column using the Configure Table Settings icon. FortiGate automatically assigns a policy ID when we create a new firewall policy on the graphical user interface. The policy ID never changes, even if we move the rule higher or lower in the sequence. If we enable policy advanced options, then we can manually assign a policy while creating a new policy. If a duplicate entry is found, the system produces an error, so we can assign a different available policy ID number. Policy advanced options are not available on the graphical user interface by default, and they could be enabled on feature visibility page. Policy IDs also are not displayed by default on the graphical user interface. Simplify groups of addresses or services. To simplify administration, we can group service and address objects. Then we can reference that group in the firewall policy instead of selecting multiple objects each time or making multiple policies. This slide shows 4 services are used to configure the policy. There could be services as HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, FTP, File Transfer Protocol, and DNS, Domain Name Service. DNS is used by browsers to resolve URLs to IP addresses because we cannot remember domain names for websites instead of IP addresses. We usually type something like google.com instead of searching its IP address. So we need to make as many policies for web and FTP traffic when it makes sense to create a service object named web-ftp or web_ftp. We create that rule and then we put web-ftp rule, and policies can reference web-ftp service group instead. So we don't have to manually select all 4 services each time we make a policy. Also, we can consolidate source addresses in source groups. Object usage. There are several component objects that can be reused as we make policies. What if we want to delete an object? If an object is being used, we cannot delete it. First, we must reconfigure the objects that are currently using it. The graphical user interface provides a simple way to find out where in the FortiGate configuration an object is being referenced. So we can have a look in ref column. There are number of places where that object was used. So when we go to policy and objects and then go to addresses, there could be, for example, internet access ISP1, and there will be 2 references. And there later we can see referenced by policy ID. The number is actually a link. So if we click it, we can see which objects are using that object. In this example, all addresses object is being used by the training address group and 3 firewall policies. If we select a firewall policy, we can use the edit, view list, and view properties tabs. Here on top of that we can see edit, delete, we can see view properties, and we can see view list. What about all these tabs? Edit tab allows us to edit the selected object. For example, we can edit page for the firewall policy ID. View list allows us to view selected objects in its category. For example, we can see the list of all firewall policies. And view properties shows where the object is used and that configuration. In this case, address object all is being used in the destination address and source address of that firewall policy. Thank you.